What's up, everybody? Welcome to Chatting with Chapman. I'm your host, Andre Chapman Jr. Some people call me Dre Made It Happen. And I have the pleasure of sitting with a competitor on both land and sea. Her athletic background started on the basketball court, expanded to track, shout out to track, and cross country and dance, and led her eventually to the world of competitive sailing, where she attended Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida. There, she captained her team to finishing third at the 2010 Women's Nationals. Her professional sailing career has earned her first place in the CNC 30 class at the 2016 Key West Race Week, as well as first place at the 2016 Etchells Pacific Coast Championship as main trimmer. She then qualified for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, where she represented the U.S. in the women's two-person dinghy 470 event. Most recently, she made history at the Paris 2024 Olympics, competing in the first ever mixed gender dinghy sailing race on the world's biggest stage. Outside of competition, she's passionate about promoting sailing and encouraging youth participation in sports. It's my pleasure to welcome Lara Dallman-Weiss to the podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you to be here with us today. I know that this is going to be a great episode and a lot of learning is going to take place. So I appreciate you being here.
I love to be here, so thanks.
Yeah. So just a little background about why I started the podcast. Growing up, I was, and in my competitive career, I was one of those athletes that struggled mentally in my youth. And it continued through college. And then when I was training for the 2020 Olympics. And so my goal now as a mental performance coach is for high school students is thinking about the different ways that we can bring this information to high school athletes. And so being able to interview elite professional and collegiate athletes so that they can listen to this podcast and learn and take the knowledge and skills and implement it in their own life so they don't have to have the same stumbling blocks that we did. And also they can understand how important it is to continuously train the mind as much as it is to train the physical. So
I love it. I'm a huge podcast consumer, so this is right up my alley.
there we
And
go.
awesome that you're doing this and providing a resource for people. So
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. So to start us off, what mental performance skills have been crucial in your progression from high school to college to the Olympics professional?
Well, okay, so I've gotten to work with many different coaches. I shout out to my high school coaches, track, cross country, basketball, like they're still some of my favorite coaches. But there's a couple different tools that I've developed. I think first of all, like the older you get, the more you do, the more accolades you get, the more confidence you get. And so that just knowing that in itself is like just helps with performance. But for me, I think the power of knowledge. So I I'm a huge podcast consumer. There's so much out there for free on YouTube. So I'm constantly watching documentaries in my sport and then with other athletes. I'm always trying to meet other athletes. So like the Olympics was great. I could
Yeah.
just like go to different athletes and meet them. And then once you have that personal connection, you start to follow them, which is part of why I love social media is you just get to see a little bit into other people's training and what they do. So just, having knowledge. And then I also think a big thing for me has been to develop note taking.
Mm.
And, that's not something I ever did in high school as an athlete. The older I've gotten really specific about it, taking notes on, my sailing training. I take notes on my workouts that my trainer gives me in the gym, my lifts, any, when I have weekly calls with my sports psychologist and, I'm constantly taking notes. So my iPhone notes are filled up. And so I go back to that all the time and lean on just past experiences and things that have stood out to me.
Yeah. For for the notes, it sounds as if that is a tool for how you can continue to grow and learn the knowledge aspect from like the actual competitions and the actual practice.
Yeah, totally. And you learn from yourself, but then it's also a good conversation piece to like for me in sailing to go up to whoever was really strong on a certain day. You know, maybe that's for us, weather is such an important thing. So you could be really strong in heavy air sailing or but not so much in light wind. And so if there's a team that's really strong a certain day, you go back to your notes, you see what your
Mm.
questions were, and you open up a conversation with one of your competitors. And I think that's a cool way to like earn some respect and kind of like climb the ladder just by reaching out to someone.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard that philosophy before. How have you been received, right? Because I can imagine some people are, they might not want to share their secrets. Other people might be open. How has that process been for you?
So I think that's really fun because even if someone, you can tell if someone's like BSing you and just even learning that about them.
Yeah.
I love studying my competitors, knowing how they're going to react in every situation. So you know you can always learn something by asking the question even if they don't share,
Mhm.
but for the most part people are really open because then I'm open with them too if they come to ask me when I'm really fast a certain day.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just how
Mhm.
I am. And you know, for sailing it's all about how you set up your boat for any given day and how you physically handle it. And so to me I'm more of an open book because I nobody is like me. Nobody has my body and has the same feel that I do. And so yeah, I just that was a cool little bubble
That
that
was a
popped.
cool thumbs up. um, what was I going to say? The knowledge aspect and being open. Well, let me ask this. Can you share a little bit about what the notes you take on yourself after practices and big meets? Like what's the type of stuff that you're writing down?
Um first of all, anything. So it's kind
Hmm.
of just like a download for me.
Hmm.
If I had something that I wanted to say to my teammate and didn't say it in the moment and I need to like kind of figure out how to say it correctly. And but a lot of time I'll just start with like the facts.
Hmm.
So what was the weather like? How did we set our boats up? What was the wave height? I just describe the day, describe how we sailed, and then you can kind of go into the race course strategy.
Yeah.
So uh, how did we do in the race, and where did we go, and what was our thinking? Um, and then yeah, it can kind of just go wherever it wants to. But I start with the facts, the who,
Hmm.
where, why.
Yeah. When I was training, one of my coaches suggested that I get a journal and after every practice, just document everything that happened. And now that I'm working with other student athletes, I tell them to do the same thing. So I love this strategy because it allows you to sit back and reflect on how far you've came, how much you've grown, what areas you still can work on. And I didn't even think about documenting everything from like the weather, or if you had something that you wanted to say with a teammate where you didn't get a chance to say it. It's just kind of like just putting everything in there.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is I like now that sailing's become my life, it's all about weather because we but I'm trying to as I'm talking to you, I'm trying to relate it to other sports. But I watched one of the marathons recently, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, and Kara
Mhm.
Goucher was calling it. And she is such a good commentator, but she actually talked a lot about the weather and how it affected the runners. And she would talk about different leaves and how like you want to stay
Wow.
sipping on them and like how the wind was affecting them. And so, yeah, like that's what I go back to for like the knowledge part. Like, you know, just like listening to a race. If you're a runner, go listen to, you can pick little things up from her.
You mentioned podcasts and YouTube videos. I'm definitely curious. You don't have to say them now, but I definitely would love to learn some of the things that you listen to and that you consume.
Yeah, I mean, I get really into like any of the Hard Knocks season.
Oh, yeah.
You know, before the Olympics, there were a bunch of athlete podcasts that came out. I'm watching Starting Five right now because I grew up playing basketball. Um, yeah, there's a lot of on YouTube, different like running races, different trail races. And as far as podcasts, I mean, my guilty pleasure is Calm Down by Aaron Andrews and Carissa Thompson.
Hmm.
But I have a variety of different podcasts.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to pivot quickly, just because I am fascinated with your background, playing all of these different sports. How has that, do you feel, contributed to where you are today, being so well-rounded and not like having the opportunities to do many of these different sports as a child? I think in today's society, we're kind of seeing, athletes specialize at a very young age, and you were doing it all. So can you share with me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't, like, this is so important to me. I guess if you're in a sport like gymnastics where you really peak at a young age, you have to specialize early, but that's so few people. For me, I learned so much from each different sport that I did. Dance, I got all of my coordination, my balance, my flexibility, just my like creative thinking.
Hmm.
And then basketball, like teamwork, sailing's not, it's a lot more of an individual sport. And so for me, my teammates are my teammates and like I will die for them. And that you can't teach that unless you're
Hmm.
on a team, a close team. Um, and then running, oh my gosh, like the discipline and just like the ability to embrace the suck and just, what you have to do mentally to be like, I'm going to do one more rep, and I don't care how hard it is, and I want to win. Um, and then each of my coaches for all of those like taught me so much. So yeah, I can't say enough about it. Playing different sports and not worrying about how old you are. I mean, like age was a big thing for me. I'm 35 now and I can still go for another Olympics if I want. I know sailing is an older sport in the Olympics, but I can remember before Tokyo, I thought I was too old. Um,
Wow.
yeah. And then just prove myself wrong. But I guess what I'm getting at is having like a huge variety of different things you did. And it wasn't even sports. Like I went to church, I was in a book club, I had so many different things that I did growing up. And I think it was like thanks to my parents for pushing everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. How do you handle high pressure situations?
Well, okay, I love pressure. So I think that's part of it is just in you. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know, the type of person that you are, but I'm really big on routines. And so I think knowing kind of what a good routine looks like and what it like you have to start somewhere as an athlete. So um establishing a routine, you can tweak it a little bit, maybe talk to a coach depending on your sport about what would a good routine be, but for when you have a lot of pressure before your game or meet or whatever it is, being able to go through some stretches, have your headphones on and know what type of music you like to listen to or what podcast, and planning out your breakfast. Like for me, if I don't have to think about any of those things and I just know and I look at my watch and I go from thing to thing to thing, then you don't really feel the pressure as much.
Hmm. Hmm.
You kind
Just
of
kind
feel
of,
it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's
How did you develop that love or passion for pressure?
I don't know. I think part of it was from dance. Like just you're on a stage and there's cameras on you and I've just always loved that. Like I'll pick the camera out in any room. And so, maybe part of it is just me, but also like anything, a lot of people don't like to give speeches. Well, the more you do, the better you get, the more you like it. Um, I think the more you're under pressure, the more it's just going to be like, focus on the game. Um,
That's literally what I was thinking about, is how you had so many different opportunities growing up from all the different sports to experience these pressure situations and pressure environments. And so by the time you continue growing, right? I'm sure the level at which practice was competed at also increased the higher you went. And so it's just kind of like that repetition factor or that routine factor of always having to perform in these pressure situations and figuring out how to navigate and handle that.
Yep, totally. Yeah, and somewhere in there, I learned how to get into the zone and in that flow state. And it's like, I don't even know if I could put it into words, but it's like everything turns off and I don't really see other people on other boats. I don't see their sail numbers or who's where. I just like am so focused and locked into me. Um, and that's also something I talk to you about with my sports psych is just creating an inward looking team. So being the team that other people want to look at instead of being the team that looks out at other people. So I think that's also part of building the foundation of your team. And
How do you do that?
well, I think little things like my teammate and I have something we do called the G7 warm up before every time we hit the water. So it's 7 movements, 7 times with 7 thoughts. This is my sports psych made it up. He's
Yeah.
awesome. And so it's just like each movement is like something to get the body moving, and then it's a different thought to get us thinking the same thing at the same time. So that's our time to get on locked in on the same page without looking at anyone else and seeing what they're doing. Um, so that's a good one. It's part of your routine and it gets you just like dialed in with your teammate. Um, and then, yeah, I think just like creating an enjoyable environment with like you just love being each other's teammates. And so yeah, that takes work. And um I know my teammate for the last game, Stu, like we both love to do anything hydrofoiling. So those are like the little boards that come up off the water and go really.
Ah,
And so, sometimes we would do that together and or go cycling together, something like that. And so just knowing that doing something else together helps create a bond and that's important for yeah, just being on the same page.
yeah. I want to touch back to something that you said earlier, and it kind of ties to my next question. Maybe if you decide to use that as the example. But my next question is, can you share a time when you were mentally in a slump and how you overcame it? And I also would love to hear the story that you kind of alluded to earlier about feeling as if you were too old for the Tokyo Olympics, but then proving yourself wrong.
Yeah. Well, the mental slump happens all the time. When you're working at the top, you push yourself really hard. And especially we're traveling overseas all the time. So like we're constantly playing the balance of like getting burnt out. Plus we're in the sun all day, every day. And so it's just like not the greatest environment, getting dehydrated. But I'd say for the slump, like it's really important to have a team in place, whoever that is. We have a nutritionist we work with, and I tell her to check in with me every once in a while. Um, just like, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be tired in a month. I know it. Call me, check in with me, make sure I'm eating. And then my best friend's also an Olympic sailor. And so she and I share a lot of the same like experiences and things we go through. And so we're constantly reminding each other, are you sleeping? Are you eating right? Um, and have you got enough endorphins? And I think the balance of those three, it's so easy to get off. A lot of times when you're tired, you're going to eat junk food. A lot of times when you're working hard, you're working towards a goal, you're not going to sleep as much, especially if you're in different time zones. Let's say you have an interview late at night, then you're not sleeping well. So I think when you get in the slump, it's so important to go back to basics and have someone who can know that you're not yourself and remind you of that. Um, And then you were asking about Tokyo.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the question again?
Yeah. Well, I'll just that thought that what you just said about having the community and especially having community that keeps you accountable and how important that is because like you said, it's easy to fall off. It's easy to get so caught up in whatever it is that you're trying to pursue that you neglect all of the things that you know you're supposed to be doing, but you're like, I can get away with not doing it. So I really love that answer. And the Tokyo question was about earlier. You mentioned how you overcame your own self and your own doubt, and so I
Yeah.
was just curious about that story.
Yeah. So right out of college, I wanted to do Olympic sailing and I didn't find the right teammate and I didn't have enough money to pursue Olympic sailing. So I got into professional sailing, traveled around a bunch. Basically, people would pay me to go sail and race their boats, but it's not Olympic sailing.
Hmm.
And for about 5 years, I was trying to find someone to sail with. And then I was offered a job in data analysis in San Francisco, and I was about to commit to that when I had a mutual friend of my Tokyo teammate who was like, "Hey, I think I found the right person for you." So she was just out of college and she was looking for a teammate, and she was an awesome sailor, and we just meshed right away. Um, and so there was kind of no looking back. The opportunity was right in front of me and there was no reason why I shouldn't do it. But before I had found her, um, you'd watch different Olympians, you'd watch different, I don't know, people competing and just say, oh, well, I missed that chance. And now looking back, it's like, I'm so glad that I kept putting the intention out there. I never lost the goal. Um, and had I not told my friend that I'm like looking, and I really want this, he wouldn't have paired us up together.
Wow,
So,
wow. So this
yeah.
almost did not happen. Wow, that's an amazing story of continuing to keep the dream alive and believing in yourself and what you know is true to your heart.
Totally. Yeah. And keeping that, I meditate every morning now. And I'm very clear about my next goals and what I want to do and just keeping that in the forefront of my mind.
Hmm. Hmm. How important, because you mentioned meditation, how important is meditation and mindfulness in what you do?
For me, it's hugely important. I mean, I'm just someone that I commit to that road and I love it. But yeah, my sports psych again, he records a morning meditation, 15 minutes every morning to the sunrise. And so it's like that, it's such a no-brainer for me. I just log in, listen to it, I get to see a sunrise, and he goes through a sequence of thoughts that just like renew your mind every morning and kind of don't allow the chatter or negativity to come in your mind right when you wake up.
This sounds amazing. This sounds absolutely wonderful.
It's the harmonyexercise.com if anyone wants to check
Yeah,
it out.
listen, I'm writing it down. The harmonyexercise.com. Okay.
Yeah. But having something, I've done a ton of different types of meditation, and even like for me, slow movement is meditation, cooking is meditation, just something where you're present and doing something slowly. And yeah, you find what works for you. And especially with social media the way it is and as crazy and addictive as it is, it's important to have those moments where you turn it all off and you go inward and you um, just touch in with yourself.
Hmm. That's one of the biggest components right now that I share with the athletes that I work with individually is just quieting the mind and just getting still, especially with social media. You can find your opponent, you can find all the things that you need to know about the other team, these other people very quickly, and that can lead you to a spiral. And so, you know, I wholeheartedly relate to the mindfulness and how important it is and why it's necessary. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for sharing the meditation.
Yeah, no problem. And then also to that point, during the games, actually about a month before, I muted all of my competitors on social media. And that's so easy to do. And
Hmm.
it's, some like I know people get so offended, like who's following who and whatever. Someone told me once it's like each person's handle is like their house. Like you walk into some houses and you're like, oh, this is so neat and organized and beautiful. And some other houses you're like, doesn't have the right feel for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing for that. Like it's so easy to mute people. And if they don't serve you and it's
Hmm.
just not like you need to focus on you and not know what someone else is doing, like don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah. Being intentional and knowing to trust and follow your own self.
Hmm.
Yeah. 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 How do you balance the mental demands of the sport with other aspects of your life?
Well, I'm not that great at it.
I appreciate the honesty.
I say that because and it's not a negative thing. Like when I commit to doing the games, I'm so committed. I'm one of those people, if I'm in a relationship, I'm 100% committed. So my love life has been non-existent as I've been training for the games because I'm just so like I don't own a house, I don't have any animals, and like sadly I don't see my family that much. And I just spent a couple weeks up in Minnesota with my parents because I was just trying to make up for lost time. Some people are a lot better at that, but I think knowing first off that relationships take a lot of work, and the older I get, the more I realize that friendships take a lot of work too. And I think when you're in high school, it's you kind of take it for granted. Your friends are always there, they're always gonna like you, like you always get along. But then you move farther away, especially after college, and you have to check in with each other. So my closest friends know that when I'm competing and training hard, I just go under a rock. They won't really hear from me, but they know that I need to hear from them. And I need to hear, like, you're doing great, keep going. So I give back when I'm not competing. And I'm just like, I'm here for you. I have time now. I'll put a lot into this friendship. But just saying it like, hey, this is a busy competition season. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to check in a lot, but I love you. And so, yeah, there's a lot of that. And then I think also learning to prioritize. Like you hear, there's a lot of female athletes now who are speaking up. Female athletes, female like mother athletes.
Mhm.
And you hear how like a lot of them I asked, isn't it crazy having a baby, being on the road, traveling, all of this, competing? And a lot of them tell me it's actually easier because you do your training, you come off the water, you take care of business, then you go home and you're totally switched onto something else. And so they're really good at prioritizing. And I think that's something I've been really focusing on lately. I do have a suggestion because I have kind of been getting into some speaking recently,
Mm.
interested in like corporate America and women in the corporate workplace. And there's just so many like boss ladies out that I want to learn from. And I was following someone around recently, and the amount of information she goes through in an hour, I'm just mind blown. Just how much she gets done, the emails she writes, the social media she's posting on, the speeches she's giving to people, the ideas she comes up with. And so that just shadowing her has like elevated my level. And, I'll wake up and get so much done in an hour. So I think it can be helpful for people to just like shadow someone and learn how to prioritize and just like see how it's done.
Yeah. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so I feel like it makes complete sense that you go all in with whatever it is that you're doing, hence why you are now a two-time Olympic athlete. So I just want to give you your flowers there because that takes a lot of level of discipline and a lot of sacrifice, like you were sharing earlier, where it's like, yeah, you're not going to be able to do some of the things that your friends are doing and that other people are doing. Um, but being intentional about creating that community around you that does understand that this is an important thing. This is just a temporary sacrifice, and we will have time later. So I think that's amazing. And in terms of the boss life, my girlfriend is that watching her get stuff done in an hour like makes me feel like, what am I doing with my life? She reminds me of exactly the woman that you shadowed. So I
Yeah,
understand. Absolutely.
it's amazing.
It is. So my next question, which you kind of touched on it, is how do you handle external pressure but also internal pressure? And so the external can be from coaches, fans, friends, right? I know you touched on having friends that understand, but for social media, for media in general, how do you navigate those?
I think the internal pressure is worse for me. But yeah, that external pressure, we don't have a ton of media. We're
Mhm.
one of the small Olympic sports and we're out on the water, so we don't have people in the bleachers. It was actually amazing going to like opening and closing ceremonies and being in a huge stadium and just hearing like how many people are cheering. I don't get that feeling a lot.
That's true. Dang, I never thought about that.
Yeah, but having a team. I worked with a PR firm I think it was like the last year or so leading up to the games, and that was really great. Where I could just send everything their way and they took off a lot of the pressure. And yeah, again, the more that you kind of deal with it, the more you learn how to interact. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I love that pressure. And I love, for me, media is just a chance to meet new people. I
Yeah. Yeah.
love the challenge of when someone's asking me questions to either teach them something new about sailing that they don't know or find out something about them.
Hmm. Can you share a
Um,
little bit about the internal pressure that you face and how you navigate that?
yeah, I mean, it's very results based. Um, when you're an athlete, when you're a sailor, so our events are 6 days long and we have several races throughout that time. So you're constantly getting result after result after result. Um, so you put a lot of results pressure on yourself. So knowing that like having different key like check-ins throughout your training that aren't about the results, I think, and just constantly reminding yourself that this isn't about the results right now. We're working on how to be better starters, off
Hmm.
this, or um, working on my technique, or whatever it may be. So I guess kind of having different focus points.
What makes you not want to focus on the result?
Um, I've worked really hard with the performance coach on how do we get faster? Because if we're the fastest boat, the results take care of themselves. And so naturally, like, especially playing basketball, like, I see competitors and I just want to like take them out. Um, but if I focus on speed, we're the fastest boat, results take care of themselves. So
That's exactly, I asked that question because that's what I tell the athletes that I work with is don't chase results, chase execution. Do what you need to do and the results will take care of itself. So I was just curious to hear from your perspective because that is a challenge that a lot of athletes have is like focusing just on the outcome of whatever it is, whether it's a game, a race, etc. And reframing it to focus on the execution could help will take care of the outcome.
totally. Yeah. And that's like the hardest thing to implement, but
Mhm.
it starts in training, starts in practice. Um, you know, make your training about hitting this time or hitting this, like whatever technique you're working on. And um, then the finish line comes.
Yeah. Last question. What advice would you give to your high school self about the mental side of sports?
Shout out to my my high school self. I like, as you know, I was in so many different sports and groups, and I think I love to be liked by a bunch of people, and I like having the diversity of friends. To me, growing up, I wasn't about the results. Like, yeah, I wanted to win, but I was also more about friends and having fun, and that was a big part of my youth. And so I think I would tell that little girl to not like to be okay with not being liked by everyone. So, a lot of athletes who keep pursuing athletics, they are, have a success growing up and they're really results based and they're, very hungry. I would teach my younger self to be a little bit hungrier for results.
How come?
Kind of backwards. Because I think it's okay to enjoy, have fun, and have results.
Hmm.
That's something I've learned later in life. And I've tried to teach people who are solely focused on results that they can enjoy as well. Um, but I would teach my younger self that you can have fun and then result there. Like, you're a great athlete, so go get it.
Yeah.
Um,
Having that balance.
yeah.
Awesome. So I do these 5 rapid fire questions that I did not tell you about. And so we have 30 seconds to do these questions. Let me start my timer. And I ask the question, I start the timer right after I ask the first question.
Okay.
All right, let's do this. What is your go-to pregame hype song?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with Beyonce. What's it called? Run It.
What's your favorite cheat meal?
My favorite what?
Cheat meal.
Oh, a donut from Sadie's in Miami.
What's your favorite off-day hobby?
Netflix.
If you could relive one moment from your career, what would it be?
The winning the Olympic trials in Miami in January.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
What's worth doing is worth doing well from my mom.
Aw, shout out to mom. Well, this has been great. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I appreciate this and all the knowledge and gems that you dropped today.
Yeah, this is great. You asked awesome questions.
Thank you. Is there anything that you feel you would like to say but didn't have a chance to say?
Yes. I am most active on Instagram, and I talk to especially like youth sailors all the time, and I say you can reach out to me, ask me any like performance questions or anything that you're curious about asking an athlete. I really open myself up to people, and
Wow.
I'm here as a resource. So when I was
Take that.
young, I didn't have many athletes to connect with, and professional athletes were like, you go and you get a library book, and that's all you have. And so it's just something I feel strongly about.
Well, I hope the people that are listening take you up on that offer because um, having the chance to talk to a two-time Olympian will just change your life. So if you have the opportunity to DM and there's questions that you want to ask, don't be shy. She's invited you in, so please do it.
Cool. And it's L Dallman, Ldallman.
I'll also put it in the description for this podcast as well. So, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all. Talk to you soon.